Hello again, this is Jason Titcomb with LMGI. We're going to continue with SolidEdge Fundamentals course. We're going to pick up with dimensioning out of the course book, and before you go and do that activity, I'd like to give you a little bit of a demonstration. I'm going to mix a few things in here to keep it kind of interesting. I'm going to delete this slot and restore the sketch. So we'll pick that as a face set and delete that. And if you come over to your Pathfinder, you'll see a used sketches, and there is a sketch that now has been moved up to the sketches group, so we can use that. I'm going to move this sketch out to the front face. Not required. I think it's really cool to know that you can very easily move a sketch around with a steering wheel. So there's one thing. I'm going to place a couple of dimensions, and notice I'm going to look squarely at this sketch. Notice my dimension appears to be 90 degrees off. So why is that? This is a dimension on a sketch, so it means that the plane that the sketch is on is actually 90 degrees off. The plane is actually like this. It's not like this. This is a little extra credit. What if I wanted to change that? If you right click and you lock to that sketch plane, I'm now locked on that sketch plane. If you look at your sketching tab, you'll see within the grid area there's a reposition origin, and you can reposition the actual reference point on that sketch. So now when I go ahead and do my dimensioning, I've actually changed the coordinate system that sketch lies on, which is pretty cool, I think. And we'll drop a radius in there. So these are sketch dimensions. So I want you to see what happens to those when we select the region with the select tool, as we've done before. We're just going to push that through the entire model. It's automatically doing a cut. Now you see, sometimes you'll see the dimensions jump a little bit, so they reattach to the model edges. There's a very subtle little trick I want you to see. When I hover over the number, if I move a little to the left, it'll set me up for editing the left side of that dimension, or a little to the right, it'll set me up for the right side. But if I click on it right dead center on the value, it will set me up for a symmetric edit, which is really cool. So I'm going to make this 100 even. So that's one. And then you'll notice when you come back onto it, even if I do, after you edit the dimension in a particular manner and given it some intent, when you come back onto the dimension, the default behavior, regardless of how you move your mouse, will be that symmetric or left or right or whatever it was that you chose. So that's design intent is being stored in the model based on how the model was edited last time. It most likely will edit successfully the next time if you edit it the same way. So a different user, this actually survives across sessions. So if a different user opens this up next Friday or something, they'll get that behavior. A little bit more here. Let's place a dimension on these two holes. Imagine we wanted to change, kind of misclicked. Let's get the edge of the hole and the edge of the hole. If you really want to narrow down your snap points, you can use that, or you can hover and you can use the keys, the MICE, but you have to precede it with the K. So let's just pick up that hole, and I'll drop this down. And let's say I wanted to move these feet away from each other a little bit. Now I'm going to roll the wheel in the mouse. It's a nice way, just one little detent on the wheel allows me to kind of play with this a little bit before I actually punch in the real number that I want. Now notice my ears are changing size, so that's because they're unconstrained. They don't have any dimensions on them at all. So we could easily fix that. There's a couple ways we could fix it, but let's just place a locked dimension on that radius. So as soon as you place the dimension, you push the padlock in and you'll have a red dimension. So now we'll get this behavior that we want where the radius is staying the same. And because there's symmetry about the base coordinate system, if I turn that off, you may not actually, so there may be another reason. It may be picking up tangency. Anyway, we will cover the design intent panel in the future. So, but what if I wanted to edit the entire vise length? Here is a really important concept. Selection is key with synchronous modeling. If I select this entire right side, and you'll notice my mouse has a little plus minus on it by default now. That means it can add, I can just continue to add additional areas. You can tap the space bar and you see that plus go to a minus, so now it only removes elements. So now that I've selected the geometry that's going to move and I touch this dimension, because my cylinders of those holes are part of my select set, all the select sets move together, and we can actually change the entire vise very quickly without any regard for the history or how it was made or the sequence that it was modeled. Very powerful editing capability. So let's jump to this round. I'll show you a couple more little details about dimensioning. I've gone and placed a couple here. Sometimes I even get hung up deleting dimensions. You need to pick them away from the value if you want to delete them. So let's place a smart dimension, and sometimes you want to deliberately tell the dimension how it should lie. So you can pick this plane, pick a plane, and then go ahead and do your dimensioning and use some of your options. And sometimes you can press the N key or the I key, and for some reason I'm not getting the results that I want. For some reason when I'm in recording mode it doesn't swap, but so I'm going to move on. I'm not going to spoil the movie. Every time I turn my recorder on it refuses to accept the N key. So this should cycle through to 90 degrees off, and certainly that'll work. But here's another important point to notice. When you right click, when you click and hold to use your radial menu to get that smart dimension again, notice that I'm previously locked from the last dimensioning tool onto this face, and you don't get the typical padlock like you get over here on the right. It shows up as a brown rectangle, so to clear that you have to hit F3. It's just the way that they wrote the software. So if I wanted to now dimension this a little bit differently, like so, I could do that. So that's just a little bit about dimensioning. You can go ahead and do this next activity and we'll continue on.